is your name?
Bianca Book Order.
What is your quest?
Capes.
What is your favorite?
Sewing tool. Tears. Rotary cutter.
Welcome back, friends and fellow responsible sewists. If having a cape makes you a superhero, what would your superpower be? If you're here, it's because you're at least considering participating in my Cape-tember sew-along, so welcome. The goal is to have fun making the cape of your dreams and to meet some other wonderful and like-minded folks in the process. If you're not part of the Facebook group for the sew-along, go ahead and click on the link in the description to join for more lengthy chats about materials, notions, pattern decisions, etc. I've also made a handy-dandy and kind of cute checklist for the entire sew-along, so if you're the type of person that likes lists and checking things off, you can download this for free from my Ko-fi store and print it off. The link is in the description. So far, we've made a list of all the required supplies, and whether you've already assembled them all or you're still waiting on some of them to arrive, we can move on to the next phase, which is making a mock-up. Even if you're not planning on doing a mock-up, I do suggest maybe sitting through the video to have a look at some of the modifications I will be making to see if any of them interest you. Now, you certainly don't have to do this step of the process. Goodness knows I might be in your homes on your computer screens, but I certainly won't be looking over your shoulder and wagging my finger at you if you decide to skip this stage. No judgment from me whatsoever. If I'm being honest, in fact, a cape is probably one of the better garments to forego a mock-up on, since they're not particularly fitted to the body, and I almost definitely wouldn't have made one if I wasn't leading this sew-along and attempting to be responsible. But I do recommend a mock-up if you're new to sewing, if you have questions on sizing or fit issues, or if you have really expensive fabrics that you literally can't afford to make a mistake with. Your mock-up can be as detailed or as basic as you want, and it's fine if, like mine, it's ugly and slapdash, just to get an idea of how your pattern will fit and to decide if you want to make any adjustments. So I made my mock-up out of these very plain, boring white curtains that were pulled out of a dumpster and smell like cigarettes. Even though I washed them 3 times, they still smell faintly like smoke, so I won't be making any permanent additions to my wardrobe with them. But rather than throw them back in the dumpster and let all that fabric go to waste, I decided to make my mock-up out of them because they are a heavier weight than most of the other fabric I have in my mock-up fabric bin, and that's nice because one of the main points of making a mock-up is not only to see how the garment fits, but also how it hangs. It's nice if, especially for something flowy like a cape or a skirt, you can see how the pattern works when it drapes the way the final fabric will. So having a slightly heavier fabric is nice, considering that my cape will be made out of this modestly heavy polywool blend combined with the weight of a lining layer. If the fabric you have isn't the perfect weight to match your final garment though, don't sweat it. Just use whatever you have on hand or what is accessible to you. Now, I did cut out all of the pattern pieces exactly as they came with no alterations off the bat, and I was super extra responsible and transferred all of the markings over onto my fabric pieces, which is something I don't think I've ever done in all of my years of sewing, so I get a gold star for being a responsible sew-along leader. Then I went ahead and sewed it all together, following the instructions verbatim, another first for me. I won't be going through the construction of the mock-up here on screen for you, but if you're new to sewing and you aren't even sure how to assemble the mock-up, don't panic. You can always use the rest of the videos for this sew-along to put together your mock-up and then go back through them with the real fabric. And if you're an old hand at this, you might look at the pattern and make some modifications straight away before you even cut out your mock-up. The more you sew, the more you'll get an idea of which steps you can skip and which ones are important to stick to. Let me know down below if you'll be making a mock-up or not, and why. I also recommend taking some notes as you sew if you hit problem areas or if you make construction mistakes so that you don't repeat these mistakes in the final product, especially if you're doing the sew along with a pattern other than the one I'll be using. The good news is that this cape goes together pretty fast, especially for a mock-up because you don't have to worry about super clean finishing. You just need to get the pieces together in the proper order and assess how they fit. You can see here that I wasn't picky about my thread color or how neat my top stitching was, and I didn't add in the buttonholes or the lining. But I did sew everything together properly, and I personally chose to iron my seams just to get a better idea of how it would look and hang when it was all assembled, and that helped give me a better idea of what I wanted to change. Speaking of change, let's go look at how I'm going to modify the pattern based off of my mock-up. So I didn't want to waste time sewing all of the buttonholes, so I simply marked off where they would go and tacked them down lightly, and in doing so, I confirmed my suspicion that I want to eliminate the bottommost button from each side. When all 5 buttons are in, my range of movement is quite limited, and the cape sort of tugs and pulls when I try to move my arms above horizontal. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to go through my day looking like a T-Rex. Daily activities for me include riding a bike and throwing about 1,000,000 sticks for my dog, and those are nearly impossible with teeny tiny T-Rex arms. Eliminating this bottom button really opened up my range of movement, and this is a problem I actually find across several models of cape, so definitely consider tweaking this section of your cape if you need more mobility. And while we're in this general area, I also think that I'd like to combine these 2 pattern pieces into one, if I have enough fabric to do so. This extension panel is a whole separate pattern piece, which makes a ton of sense in terms of layout and saving fabric, but since I'm working with a tartan, I'd like to try and cut them as one so my pattern continues across the whole piece. Does this really matter? No, not really, especially considering that this will be hidden under the front piece, but it would bring me joy, so I'm gonna try and swing it. I'm also going to round off this corner while I'm at it. With my thick fabric and the added interfacing, this corner is going to be hard to get extra sharp, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a nice gentle round over. Moving around to the back of the cape, I decided I wanted to increase the swishiness of my cape just to really piss Edna off.
No capes!
So I'll be slashing and spreading both the front side and the main back pieces to add some more volume. Then, because I'd really like to settle the raging debate that's going on over in the History Bounding Facebook page, I'm going to make this cape wearable with a backpack. One of the main complaints about wearing capes in general is how on earth do you carry anything when you're wearing one? Some people have suggested the sort of cross-shoulder style bags that you wear under the cape, but I tend to feel lopsided if I wear one for too long, so my solution is going to be adding 2 small and nearly invisible holes for the backpack straps to pass through, and then just modifying my bag with some buckles so that I can buckle the straps through the cape. Then in the front, I'm going to change these pockets based heavily, if not entirely, on this image I found from 1937. I will also be cutting this front section so that the tartan goes in a sort of V pattern, which will involve some pattern matching. And if you too will be undertaking some pattern matching, I will throw up some of my favorite video tutorials and links in the description. This will be the first time that I try pattern matching, so let's learn together. This is the stage where some of you might decide to do a full bust adjustment, or FBA. I am not particularly busty and will not be needing to do one of these, nor do I have any experience doing one, so I've consulted several other CosTubers who gave me a list of their favorite tutorials on the topic, and I will link those down below if you decide that you too would like a more fitted front panel. This might in fact be a good place to point out that I do not know everything about sewing, and I definitely don't want to give the impression that I'm an expert. I have some good experience and a decent intuition, but I'm also turning to friends and colleagues when I have questions, and I will continue to do so through this whole process. When I don't know the answer, whenever possible, I will try to direct you to someone else who has more experience than me and a clear video on the process. So if you've finished your mock-up and you've decided on your alterations, let's first get our dopamine burst, and then go pull out some scrap paper, a pair of non-sewing scissors, and perhaps some rulers, because next video I'll go through each of these modifications in more detail. And if you aren't going to modify your pattern at all, or you're making different alterations, you can just let that video run in the background, or you can skip right ahead to the next video where we start cutting into the real fabric. And remember, these videos will be left up on YouTube for all eternity, so don't feel like you have to plow through them like it's full steam ahead or nothing. If you need to take a break and come back to this process later, definitely do so. Be considerate of your schedule, your health, and any of the other mini commitments to our time that exist. If you've made it all the way to this point, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up so the YouTube algorithm knows you liked it. And leave me a comment telling me if you'll be making a mock-up or not, how that process went if you did, and what modifications you'll be making to your pattern. Take a short break and let's check back in to go through all those modifications in a bit more detail. Bye!